Hello guys, it's Ryan Ho, back with another video. Today I want to talk about why the Dynamr is the best sounding headphone, and today we're going to talk about the bass ported pads on the Dynamr. It comes with magnetic ear pads, and it makes swapping ear pads really easy because they're literally just magnets that you put on and take off. It takes like 5 seconds to replace them, and there's a cool property about how this works as well. Essentially for planars, there's a special effect in which if you break the seal of the planar and it allows more airflow, it actually boosts the bass of the planar. Of course, the side effect of that is you lose just a little bit of sub bass at the very end, and it's really not that bad. But overall, it improves the sound in a way if you want more bass and you want to have more fun while you're listening to this headphone. The bass ported pads are designed to do that. Now, for me, before I was rotating the air pad 90 degrees and breaking the seal that way in order to get that bass lift. This is a much more kind of superior solution and a more consistent solution and a more comfortable solution. So I definitely recommend people, if they're interested in that, to get these. Now I'll also talk about some of my updates from like having this for like the past month. There's some few things I kind of found out about it. And then of course, the reason why I think this is the best headphone is simply, for me, I'm looking for a headphone that literally sounds the most real, essentially. You know, whatever you're recording, it plays that track exactly how it was recorded. That's what I'm personally looking for. And this is the first headphone that I've listened to that does that really well. I think the things about this, like I said before, is it's a studio type of headphone. So it has a really nice tuning to it that sounds very natural. I think that's what a lot of kind of high-end headphones don't really do right, to be honest. They all have some weird type of quirks here and there. This is the most normal sounding of the headphones I've heard, as well as the other part about this headphone is the amount of detail and the resolution that you get out of this headphone is pretty insane. You know, it has other properties like dynamics, like when you kind of hear bass, you can feel the bass, like you can feel the strings, you can feel like all the instruments where they're playing. So that's that kind of like 3D effect. You know, I've described it like if you're watching a movie, you kind of hear like the bass rumble and stuff like that. It has that same type of feeling through all its notes, which just kind of adds to that realism. And there's another thing that what people call like attack, like essentially like if you hear a drum, sometimes on certain headphones, the drum doesn't really feel like it's getting hit hard. This headphone, it sounds like it's just getting like punched really hard. It has a really fast attack in that sense. And so that's another thing that just adds to the type of realism that you get from just listening to this headphone. So like when people say detail, there's other aspects that like matter that kind of contribute to the overall like realism of a headphone, in my opinion. And of course, soundstage and imaging also play a big role in that as well. And I think a combination of all those factors makes this really a whole package of just sounding most like realistic I've ever heard. Some people use the word transparent. When they say transparent, they essentially mean it's like you're listening to music as it is, like as if you're not wearing headphone, essentially is what that means. So this is kind of a headphone that really does that. Another thing that people like to say is like it has really fast transient response. Essentially, you know, a lot of like cheaper headphones like the HD58X right here for Sennheiser, and you can just tell when you play music through that and then I listen to this, like this thing, the driver just isn't capable enough and doesn't move fast enough to produce all the notes. It definitely kind of overshoots a lot of notes. A lot of notes last for way too long, and it doesn't sound nearly as clean as a Dynamr. And you can really tell the difference when you go between kind of like, you know, the standard headphone that most people recommended versus something like the Dynamr. You kind of see like the huge upgrade that you get from this. But anyways, let's talk more about kind of the sound of this with the bass ported pads. Talking about the build of the MR. So again, I feel like the build of this is honestly really nice. What I've, noticed is the kind of weight of this is still 420 grams. I think their website still says 390. So I'm not sure if mine just weighs more than the other ones they're making, but the kind of headphone I've noticed that like this kind of no padding. So I'm still rocking the kind of no pad life, which is fine for me. So when it comes to kind of the comfort of this and the pad and kind of how it fits on your head, I've noticed that the cleft of this is obviously in the bottom left or the bottom right corner. Most headphones, the thickest part is actually located in the back right here, and you really just put it on your head. For me, I've noticed that for this headphone, I kind of put it on my head and I kind of tilt it a little forward just a little bit because that's what I find the most comfortable and the best fit for me. So that's something a little different I noticed about this headphone than kind of other headphones I have kind of worn. All right, so here you can see the base ported pad. You can see how, the different grooves that allow the air to escape and kind of break the seal versus the standard pad, which is completely flat and flush against the kind of headphone. All right, so now this is the base ported pad. You can kind of see the little holes it has here. That's where they kind of break the seal and cause the bass lift from right here. The kind of old pads are, as you can see, very flat. I mean, if I put these next to each other, you can barely tell, but like there's definitely a little gap right here where it kind of, allows extra air to escape. Now, some of the effects is they say it increases the sound stage. I definitely feel like you do hear a little bit of the sound escaping from the kind of these little holes, so it does make the sound stage sound just a little bit bigger. But I wouldn't say it's a huge difference. At least I didn't experience that big of a difference. But it's definitely a nice added benefit, right? Now, obviously, we already discussed the sound changes, but you definitely get more bass with less sub bass. And, for overall, like, I don't really think you really hear that much difference in the mid-range to treble. Like, at one point, I thought I heard the treble dip a little bit, but it could have just been me taking the headphone off, putting the pad on, and then putting it on my head in a slightly different position. And really, I would say the treble is maybe very, very slightly less, or it's exactly the same if you have the same consistent fit every single time. Another thing worth noting about this headphone is that this headphone uses essentially no dampening at all, so you can see through the driver, right? Literally, the driver is so transparent and there's literally nothing here that you can see through it. A lot of headphones add different types of foams and stuff to like tune it, and that could kind of lead to, the perception of less detail, while this one has literally nothing there. Like, it's kind of crazy how they were able to tune a headphone that well. So for comparison, we have the HD 58X Jubilee as the comparison. You can actually see the dot right here maybe as the only thing that some light is spilling through. But the 58X has both a foam on the outer side for kind of tuning and dampening, and then it also has some on the inside as well, which is right here through the driver right here. So you can kind of see through it a little bit, but really there's definitely material that is in the way. Versus for the Diane MR, it's really just a filter right here to prevent dust from getting into your driver. They have it on both sides, so your driver will stay hopefully clean. So another thing I want to mention is the cable of the Diane MR. So it comes with different cables, but I got the Pentacon cable. And something I noticed about this cable is really that this cable right here is very smooth at this kind of connection point, and it's very like metally. So like if your hands are like oily, I noticed that there's nowhere to like grip it. So when I'm trying to pull it out, sometimes I have very difficulty of like pulling out because my hand is slipping. Obviously I can hold onto the cable, but I'm trying to like not pull it on the cable because I think that will probably ruin the cable faster if you do it like that. But it's something I noticed. It's also worth noting that the Wu Audio WA7 Fireflies is definitely a really good pairing with the Diane MR. I was also using the iFi Neo 2 and the iFi iCan as well for like the solid state type of testing I was doing. So both of these are really good things to use with the Diane MR. You could definitely hear all the detail that it has to give. If I just describe the whole entire sound signature as a whole, it's basically almost unchanged from the kind of mid frequencies to the high frequencies. So it has that studio tuning. So you have that full mid range, vocals are there, forward, male, female. They don't sound unnatural. They're just really just present, very forward, as if they're kind of in front of you in the recording, they'll sound in front of you. If they sound further away, they'll sound further away. It really does show exactly how kind of the vocals should be presented. And the other thing is for the treble, I don't really hear anything spicy. It's like really good, very smooth. It's exactly how treble should be, in my opinion. Boosting the treble is, well, some people call it fake detail, but for me, it's just called fatigue, or sometimes it could be sibilant, or sometimes it could be painful. This headphone exhibits none of those, which is really great. So that's one of the things I really like. So let's talk about the bass. So the bass gets a moderate bass boost. I think this is about as much as most people would want. When it comes to really like pop songs, like a lot of modern genres. The bass of the sounds really nice, very clean. It's not overdone to where it sounds a little bit too like muddy and taking over. So it's really just that moderate bass boost that you want in a headphone to make everything sound a lot more fun. Now, it's not going to be like the DJ or bass head level of bass. So if you're expecting that, that's not what you're going to get with this bass boost, but you're getting a moderate level of bass boost. The good thing is after actually having this here to test, because the reason why I got the bass pads to begin with is because you could definitely hear more sub bass on the bass pad versus there's definitely a little bit of trade-off of you get more kind of bass, mid bass type of boost, but you get a little bit less sub bass on the Diana MR when you break the seal. However, it really isn't that bad, to be honest. Like after listening back and forth, like I could definitely hear very slight sub bass like dip. You can still hear the sub bass. In fact, you can probably hear it more than other headphones still. However, it is just a little bit lower, but I do think that trade-off is worth it. I think a lot of your music is more kind of in the upper regions anyways. Some songs don't even play sub bass that low. And honestly, I probably recommend most people to go with the bass ported pad if you just want a more fun time. Part of me was like, yeah, I probably should have just gotten the bass ported pad to begin with because I know the type of guy I am. And I actually like bass because I listen to music for enjoyment, not for just like critical listening and digesting everything. In the end of the day, I'm here to enjoy listening to my music. And a lot of my music that I enjoy involves a lot of bass. So that's why I think the bass ported pad is definitely the thing for a lot of people as well, if you're just like me. I would say the other interesting thing is the bass boost definitely doesn't sound like it kind of muddies the kind of mid-range at all. I do think it brings a little bit more warmth in the lower mid-range, but really it doesn't really sound muddy at all. It's like they kind of did design this very purposely. If you look, they probably tested many variations of this and it kind of chose this as the design. When I put this on my head, I can actually even pull this apart a little bit more and break the seal just a tiny bit more. And what happens is you can actually hear the bass boost even more. That just like, begs the question is like, they probably could even boost the bass more if they wanted to by making the gap bigger. But I'm assuming they didn't because they're probably picking what they thought would be the best balance between kind of boosting the bass and kind of side effects of, maybe boosting it too much or rolling off the sub bass too much, if I had to guess. In the end of the day, I think that Diana MR is a wonderful sounding headphone. I think the thing that really stands out is like, a lot of open back headphones in general have what people call flat bass, right? And then we talk about open back planar headphones. And when it comes to planar, it's really not many, if I can't really think of any that really have a boosted bass. And so in order to achieve that, a lot of times you're going to have to do tricks like this where you kind of break the seal to achieve that response. And this is probably the only headphone I know that actually builds something like a bass ported pad intentionally for the headphones. Other manufacturers are like gluing on the ear pads, so you can't remove it, and they require like a really good seal for those kind of headphones to perform well in the bass, versus the design of the Diana is much different from those in that sense. Like you don't really need a tight seal to hear it all the way down the sub bass, obviously, and of course you can break that seal and get an even bigger lift in the bass. Obviously you are trading off a little bit on the low end, but it's still one of those things where it's like, damn, it's just so fun and enjoyable. And it's just a cool, clever design because you can kind of pick both responses that you want because, if you want to hear the bass port pads, you put those on. 5 seconds later, you take that off and you put on the standard leather pads. You're good to go. And they even have the vegan pads that have other attributes like kind of rolling off the treble. If you find the treble to be too much for you, you want something a little bit warmer, they also have that as an option. So really, there's a lot of different options for this headphone. And I just like how convenient it is for people to kind of swap those out. Now I'm like thinking to myself, do I need to try the suedes next? Like, damn, there's just more options. So like, I feel like some people get kind of bored of listening to their gear or the same thing all the time. Then this kind of allows you to kind of listen to your headphones, swap it out and hear different sound signatures from it and kind of spice up your life a little bit more. Just kind of like tubes, like, we have the WA7. People like to swap the tubes out of their WA7s and to get different flavors. I think with your ear pads like that, you can also kind of achieve that if you want to just keep your life a little bit more interesting all the time. Anyways, when you have such a great tuning from the mid-range to treble and you get that boosted bass with all that detail and that realism, I really do think that makes this a really, really compelling option on the market. And for me, after testing a lot of different headphones, because I went to CanJam, I've been to, well, 2 CanJams. The first CanJam I went to, I listed a bunch of stuff, you know, all the things that people hyped up, like Susvara and all that type of stuff. And, you know, I listened to a lot of stuff and I wasn't sure if there was anything that was perfect for me that time. I even went to Japan. They had a portable audio fest in Japan. I heard tons more of headphones. I've heard like, honestly, I have a whole list of them that I'm compiling of like over 100, 150 headphones that I've heard. I've literally heard like most headphones out there in existence. Like if you go to Japan, it's kind of crazy. They have like these walls, these racks of walls where you can literally just plug in your phone and just try on anything you want. And so, yeah, I've definitely heard a lot. And, you know, for me, even though I heard a lot, there wasn't a lot of things that I like because I think I'm very, very picky. Like I'm really looking for that really like, you know, studio, like precise type of sound. And so for me, I finally found it in this headphone. But the whole point of the story is that I did search long and hard. Like the other thing is I actually bought my iFi iCan, like a $2,000 amplifier, when my best headphone was a $600 HE6 headphone. And that's because there was literally not many headphones I wanted to kind of buy or upgrade from my Hyphen HE6 because it was just so good. And other headphones had all these different trade-offs that just didn't interest me in general. I hope this video helped you guys. Please like and subscribe down below. Helps my videos out. And yeah, until the next video.